Hail, travelers! Today, I want to speak on my experiences in Phase 3 so far. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I also want this video to build off my last video in which I discussed crafting. Let's start out with the launch day. The launch went well, and there was only a 1-hour delay, which is not much at all. Very few had issues connecting to the game. And the new starting zone, the Anvils, had a great 1 to 6 level experience. The new leveling area inside the Dun Mountain was easy to understand, had a good story, and took players on an adventure. After leaving the mountain, players went to 2 starting towns and 2 crafting outposts. This was when most of the players started to feel the pain. The cost of crafting had greatly increased, and there was no direct way to obtain gear from quests or vendors. Another bad experience was the birds. Wow, whoever did the procedural generation of mobs for the Anvils must be a bird enjoyer, as the dwarves quickly came under attack from flocks of ravens and hawks. Aside from the birds, the Anvils is a very wonderful place. It's built well, it looks beautiful, and you like spending your time there. Dungeons, even though we only have pocket dungeons at this time, are also fairly interesting and have good design. The initial questing experience in the Anvils was very well done, and once you left the mountain, that's where it kind of ended. You were able to find Easter eggs of possibly future quest items and stuff like that further along in the area, but they don't seem to be connected to working quests at this time. Another frustration of players was the placement of the crafting town. The Nakua side and the Dunir side each have a crafting town, and the stations are split between each side in a way that's just strange that ends up requiring you to run from one side of the mountain to the other side often just to craft a single item. If any intrepid staff are watching, I think that a perfect solution to this problem here would be a dwarven mining tram system between the 2 sides of the mountain. See the picture. Oh man, that would be awesome. Another point of frustration was missing recipes. The recipes that were sold in the Anvils would not show up on the crafting benches in the Anvils, and you would have to go all the way to the Riverlands to craft the item. Players also quickly found out that the Anvils was missing the profession certificate trainers. So it was not possible to promote your certificates in the Anvils. You would have to go all the way to the Riverlands. These issues compounded, and many players left the Anvils for the Riverlands. Then the nodes, now called settlements, were leveling too slowly to allow players to be competitive with the Riverlands players. So even more players left. I think it's important to mention at this point that the Riverlands, as a result of all of this, is the only zone that has the villages and towns, which are basically needed for crafting of anything higher than novice. For those unfamiliar, the settlements, or sometimes called nodes, start at the wilderness stage, then progress to the crossroads stage, and then the encampment stage before becoming a fully functional village. As a player, it feels like you don't get many rewards beyond the storage depot opening at the crossroads stage. Intrepid has added a crate system, and now you can build projects. However, the projects do not seem to add much to the node that a player can see. A great way to help players feel accomplished would be to have some of the crate projects add actual crafting benches to the nodes. Not all of them, but maybe 2 or 3. This would help players spread out over the greater zone, encourage trade, spread the experience gained across settlements to better enable competitive leveling. Now that we've had a brief overview of what occurred in the Riverlands starting area this phase, Let's take a deeper look at the crafting problem, and things that players seem to really like now. On a positive note, players, at least the ones I've met, seem to really enjoy getting things like copper out of granite and basalt. They like this, and it gives them a reason to mine them. Gone are the days of trying to search for a single copper node and not finding a single one all day. Players tend to voice complaints about two issues: the gold cost to craft and the amount of resources needed to make a single item. I enjoy a deep and complex crafting system, and I have spent a good amount of time gathering and processing so far, while holding off on final products now, since selling resources has been fulfilling my silver needs. So here was the sword example I used in my previous video. Let's talk about how to make this simpler, yet still deep and engaging. The sword's final touches are a vendor silver sync item. I covered these items in greater detail in my previous video. At the moment, I just want to talk about how to make it simpler to use. If a button was added on the crafting screen that allowed the player to pay for and add the item to their craft, this would reduce the bouncing between vendors. Next, let's talk about the copper bars and ash board. If these items were turned into a sword blade and a wooden sword handle, then the items would be less cumbersome for players to move around in their bags. The creative slot-style storage Intrepid created, which has greatly grown on me, could still limit this item, so you could not transport hundreds of them between nodes without caravans or crates. We already have a rarity scale in the game for the quality of items. Higher rarity items require certain rare resources to make. However, this rarity scale could also increase the amount of the required resources needed to make these items. That way, the bottom tier requires less materials and less silver in processing and crafting fees. This would allow your casual player to finally get rid of that starter sword, while at the same time giving dedicated players a long-term goal to chase when it comes to gearing out in the best gear in the game. Alright, let's talk about performance. I have seen good performance in Phase 3, and I have not had any issues personally with crashing or with lag. Even during a war between Polar and Supple near Steelbloom, I did not crash, and I was able to watch the two sides fight. Render distance did drop, but it was playable. Hopefully the automatic dynamic server meshing will be turned on soon to help these impromptu events. The upgrade to Unreal 5.6 seems to be a success, and the game looks better than ever. While Phase 3 is not what some expected, it is a good experience, and the best one so far. Phase 3 is the best experience for new players to date, with the addition of more quests. It is easy to doom about a game in alpha, but you signed up to test a game, not play a game. It is easy to overlook all the items that have been added into the game, like the new dungeons, the expanded world, the crate system, the old systems that have been updated, the open world PvP objectives. While these systems still need work, they were stood up for us to begin testing. As Intrepid receives feedback, these systems will grow and will be refined further. As we enter into Phase 3, we are now in the content phase of the alpha. Intrepid has already announced a Harbinger's patch for later this year that will introduce a more dynamic world, which is fighting off corruption. There will be PvP and PvE events to go along with this threat to Vera. So, what have you enjoyed or disliked about Phase 3? Please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Remember, guard your clan, guard your gold, guard your beard.